they built, and also how do people remember them in the present time? Do people remember that a woman built it, or now their identity is completely faded? Also the question of whether, how much say did women have in building these architecture? Were they just patrons? Paise diye aur ho gaya? Was it just about money, or also they were architects? That are the minute question these stories tell you. At the end of this, we will also play a very interesting game. It is kind of mafia game, or in Hindi as we say Raja Mantri Chor Sipahi, but this time one will be a Begum, one will be two will be conspirators with the Begum. Then we will have a royal informant who will try to figure out how to stop it, and the others will be noble people. Okay, so with this we will do the entire book. It's just that you need to purchase it later on, that's it. Okay, but there are a lot of paintings in these books, and these paintings will be really nice for you to see. I would be talking about Zeenat Mahal because if you have been to Old Delhi, she has built a Haveli for herself, a beautiful Haveli. Sir, you have been? Mansoor साहब मुझे बता रहे हैं वो लाल कुआं से है. He is from Lal Kuan Chawri Bazaar, and in the Lal Kuan we have Zeenat Mahal Secondary School, and that school was first a Haveli, a grand Haveli built by her, and she was called Danka Begum. Danke ki chot pe कहते हैं ना. So Danka means the drums used to beat when she used to come. Zeenat Mahal. Zeenat Mahal was the youngest wife of Bahadur Shah Zafar, and she became the last Begum who is remembered. Bahadur Shah Zafar went on to marry more Begums, but she became the most prime and most important. And in 1857, she conspired with the British because she knew there's no way the Sepoys will win. Okay, so this is the context. In fact, Aurangzeb even pardoned his daughter Zeenat-ul-Nisa when she helped the Marathas escape. And why did she help Marathas escape? Because her brother was helped by the Marathas. Okay, so she was very compassionate towards Marathas. Then you have the fearless Tawaif. We have the Mubarak Begum ka Masjid or the Randi ka Masjid in Lal Kuan. And then we have the wives of Shah Jahan. So Shah Jahan is known for Mumtaz Mahal or Anjuman as it is called. But apart from that, we have two such interesting women of Shah Jahan. One is Fatehpuri Begum, the other is your Sirhindi Begum, who built masjid and mosque in Old Delhi, and after the death of Mumtaz, they became extremely powerful. They were also the patrons of Shalimar Garden, which is in Delhi. Okay. So many monuments are built by women. You have Roshanara Garden, you have Shalimar Garden, you have the entire Chandni Chowk built by Jahanara Begum, you have Fatehpuri Masjid, the second largest mosque in Old Delhi, built by a Begum. And interesting baat I tell you, Fatehpuri Masjid is at the end of Chandni Chowk. It's a straight route. Now, if I am holding the rope, and let's assume Mukund is holding the rope at Red Fort, so it's a straight line. Now, if I keep on walking straight, I'll sent to the battlefield. By 19, in a Mughal empire, you are battle worn to start fights. Okay? She would rule over the harem and the emperor's heart and make decisions that would ripple through the court like wildfire. Her ambition stirred gossip. Her defiance drew scorn, and her name would eventually be entangled in one of empire's darkest scandals: betrayal, bloodshed, and murder. But before all that, before the revolt, before the fall of Delhi, before the exile and the ruin, there was a girl in Lal Kuan, a girl who captivated an emperor. that we think that black magic is is a much possible option. The balance of power has shifted. The Zeenat Mahal Haveli became a symbol of the shift. It wasn't just a royal gift, it was a declaration. The emperor, who should have been the central figure in the court, now revolved around his queen. Some scholars argue that Zeenat herself commissioned and designed the mansion. Others believe Zafar built it for her in 1856. Till the 1970s, there was a Persian plaque. Engraved on it were the following words: कर दिए ज़फ़र ज़ीनत महल तामीर ए कसर बी बदल, शुद्ध बर मजल साल बनाए खांका ए ज़ीनत महल. The work of Zafar, an unmatched edifice, Zeenat Mahal. This year commenced the construction of a house for Zeenat Mahal. While it is possible that Zafar commissioned the building, the style and the grandeur of the building was absolutely Zeenat Mahal. The interior of the Haveli was a world unto itself, a lush, secluded sanctuary nestled within the chaos of dusty 19th century Delhi. Aap me say, how many of you have been to Old Delhi Haveli? In the morning we had a Haveli's walk. Shika has been more than enough. I asked Mukund, he never comes. Yes. A Haveli, if you look at a Old Delhi Haveli, there's always a lot of noise in Chandni Chowk, and I can barely hear my thoughts when I'm giving a talk. But when I enter the Haveli, it's pin drop silence, like this room. There's always the temperature, the degree drops, it's cooler. In sweltering heat, जब आप जाएंगे बहुत ठंडक मिलती है, बहुत राहत मिलती है, because of the cross ventilation, and there's always silence. The architecture of previous time was such that no noise used to enter the house, and that's exactly how her Haveli has been described by the accounts. In the courtyard, there were shade-giving trees lined in inner pavilion. The arches opened to dalan, hallways, and dar dalan. Sunlight filtered softly through the filgari jali windows, and silk drapes decorated the sandstone pillars. Khas mat hung from each of the arches, which was sprinkled with water every few hours, releasing the earthly smell associated with Delhi summer. The brocade curtains were scented with jasmine and rose water. Hookah stood ready in the corner of the room, where eunuch and servants exchanged gossip and banter that filled the Haveli. Silver trays of sharbat and dry fruits made slow rounds as Zeenat lounged on low seating with plush cushions and engaged in meetings with her trusted counsel. Her appearance beyond the Haveli was no less theatrical. Chronicler R.V. Smith recounts how her procession was led by rhythmic beats of Nakkarwala drum beaters, earning her the title Danka Begum by the locals. As per contemporary historian Zahir Dehelvi, Bahadur Shah Zafar's royal carriage was drawn by 16 horses, but hers followed close behind, pulled by 8, an exceptional privilege for a queen consort in the frugal Mughal court of the 19th century. 8 ghode, 8 horses are bringing her from Red Fort to Lal Kuan, where she will stop. The Nakaras will say Zeenat Mahal has arrived, and she will sit down in the Haveli. Beneath all this finery lay the Haveli's secret, Kol Tehkhana, Delhi's underground network of secret tunnels. Delhi jitni upar hai utni niche bhi hai. If you look at Old Delhi, is not what sees to your eyes, it's actually what's below. 2 tunnels leading were said to have extended from the Haveli, one leading to the Red Fort, the other leading to Ajmeri Gate. In times of British surveillance, such secret passageways offered swift, discreet movement, escape routes for confidential meetings far from the watchful eyes. One connected to Ajmeri Gate, the other connected to Red Fort itself. They were closed in 1960s. Through her private quarters was steeped in luxury and indulgence. Zenat's ambition was anything but passive. Her marriage to Bahadur Shah Zafar marked not only a turning point for her personal life but also a shift in the imperial balance. Soon after their union, Zenat Mahal gave birth to son Jawan Bakht, a child who would become the center of all her aspirations. Her goal was clear. She was determined to secure the Mughal throne for him, regardless of the established successful succession line that had long been acknowledged by the British. So British believed in primogeniture, which Mughals did not believe. For Mughals, if you were able, if you were adept, you will become the ruler. But the British found it very confusing and they believed in primogeniture. According to the primogeniture, the firstborn is generally the ruler. But generally what happened in the harem was the Pacha Begum or the queen always wanted her son to come to the throne because she knew if her son comes to the throne, she will be able to control the Zenana. And controlling the Zenana means not just controlling 150 women, but also controlling the correspondence from between the ambassadors, controlling noblemen, and having the emperor's undivided attention. You look at Jahanara, you look at Mamanga, you will look at Zenat Mahal. All of them will use wedding as a way to assert their power. Okay? Yes, Zahir Dehlvi in Dastan-e-Gadar writes about the wedding. Such beauty and magnificence had never been seen before, at least not in my lifetime. It was a celebration I shall never forget. Jawan Bakht, then only 11, wed Nawab Shah Zamani Begum, his mother's niece, in a lavish ceremony. Interestingly, the wedding turned into a battle of wits between famous 19th century poet Mirza Ghalib and his arch rival Zauq. Zauq was the court poet of Red Fort at that time. Zenat Mahal had requested Ghalib to write a Sehra, a poem sung in the honor of the groom Jawan Bakht. Mirza Ghalib did write the Sehra, but also used it as an opportunity to take a dig at both Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar and his imperial court poet Zauq. अब Ghalib being Ghalib, Ghalib ने कहा ठीक है, लिख देंगे सहरा, I will write a Sehra, but Ghalib is cheeky. So Ghalib, what he did in the Sehra, in a very subtle way, he made fun of Zauq because he did not like Zauq at all. He's like, he's way beneath me. I should have been the court poet. When Zauq came to the Red Fort, he read the Sehra. He's like, what has happened? What did you allow? How did you allow? Bahadur Shah Zafar को उन्होंने complain करी, आपने ये allow कर दिया, you allowed this. So Bahadur Shah Zafar ने कहा माफी नामा जारी करो. Ghalib has to apologize to me. तो सबने बोला Ghalib अब तो सर कट जाएगा. You have to do this. When Zauq, after a brief illness, returned to the court, he read the poem and was absolutely furious with Mirza Ghalib. Mirza Ghalib was advised by his friends to write a letter of apology to both the emperor and the court poet. Mirza Ghalib grudgingly agreed, knowing his head was at stake. As Zafar aged, he grew painfully aware of his financial strain, even pleading East India Company for a monthly stipend for Zenat Mahal and Jawan Bakht. He requested the British, but the British denied. अब पैसा इतना खर्च हो गया था, so much money had spent. Come on, you're giving 7 lakh rupees and 500 rupees to your begum, and you have how many? 16 sons, 31 daughters. So he had no money. So he asked the British, देखिए खर्चा पानी के लिए थोड़ा सा और दे दीजिए stipend. By this time, the Mughals were taking money from the British to run the household, and the British denied. The British said, I won't give you a penny. But Zafar again wrote a letter कि देखिए शादी पे बड़ा खर्चा हो गया है. The wedding costed a lot. So can you please give me some money? Again, his request was not accepted. Huh? Okay. Now, which portion should I pick? There's not much chapter part of the book left. Do you want me to talk about the 1857 revolt, or do you want me to talk what happened after 1857? I can give you a brief. I don't want you to fall asleep in your chair. The revolt? Okay, the revolt. अब हुआ ये, जीनत महल was smarter than Zafar. It always happens. The wife is smarter than the husband. Always, guaranteed. The wife always says कि ये कर लो, and the husband does not listen, and then later on मैंने कहा था. I told you to buy that plot of land, you did not listen to me, and see. So that's exactly what happened between Zeenat and Zafar. Zeenat was like, you don't listen to these sepoys, you help the British and you will be safe. But Zafar को लगा थोड़े वो ego boost हो गई. His ego got boosted, so he thought कि चलो बैठ जाते हैं गद्दी पे. So I'll sit on the throne and let's see what happens. In 1856, just a year before the rebellion broke out, the death of Mirza Fakhruddin presented Zeenat Mahal with a fresh opportunity to advance her son Mirza Jawan Bakht's claim to the throne. However, the British once again overlooked her ambitions, naming the next surviving son Muhammad Quresh as the successor. Yet, Zeenat Mahal was not one to surrender her cause easily. At her Haveli, she held court with her trusted advisors, weaving intricate plans and conspiracies to achieve her objective. Now, this lady is deadly. Imagine anyone who Zeenat Mahal did not like died under mysterious circumstances. मरे जा रहे हैं, एक जाता है, फिर दूसरा जाता है, तीसरा जाता है. One could be accidental, two could be coincidental, how about three? And that is when the British were now worried about this lady. They are like, we are unable to pinpoint at her, but we know something fishy is going on. Her page 52. Her determination to secure the throne of her son was matched by her apparent willingness to take drastic measure. Historical accounts suggest that her pursuit of power might have been ruthless. Mysterious death of those supporting Mirza Fakhru, among them prominent British official Sir Thomas Metcalfe, sparked scandal, and it was widely suspected that Zeenat Mahal played a role in them. Mehrauli Archaeological Park has the famous Quli Khan tomb, the British summer house built by Thomas Metcalfe. Thomas Metcalfe is also the person who commissioned a lot of paintings. So he also died under mysterious circumstances, and everyone thinks it was Zeenat Mahal who poisoned him. Strikingly, within a year, several key figures who stood in the way of her son's nomination met unlikely and mysterious death. These included Sir H.M. Eliot, the British agent in Delhi, James Thompson, the Lieutenant Governor of Northwest Province, Sir Thomas Metcalfe. Even Mirza Fakhruddin's own death was shrouded in suspicion. The British attributed the sudden death to the use of vegetable poison, which allegedly prepared in a way left no trace, a technique reportedly mastered by the renowned Hakim and native physician of that time. So Zeenat Mahal managed to insert vegetable dye in the bodies of her contenders, and that trace never left. Okay. While concrete evidence remains elusive, these events have fueled speculation about the extent of Zeenat Mahal's determination and the length she might have gone to secure her son's future. Zeenat was not a passive queen, she was a ruthless political player trying to secure a future for her son at any cost. Things between Zafar and Zeenat turned sour when the rebellion of 1857 broke out. The honeymoon phase is officially over. Now the husband and the wife are fighting. The last straw was when a cannonball hit Red Fort. Zeenat decided to move out of the palace. उन्होंने कहा बहुत हो गया, I am moving out of the palace now. She was furious that Zafar supported the sepoys and emotionally distanced herself from him. She had only one determined goal in her mind. No matter what, she wanted Jawan Bakht to win. If rebels won and the Mughal Empire was restored, she wanted enough control over her husband to influence him to declare Jawan Bakht as heir. If rebels failed, she wanted the British to nominate Jawan Bakht. So, atvi meri, patvi meri. If the sepoys win, she knew she has enough hold over Bahadur Shah Zafar that Jawan Bakht will come to throne. But if the British won, she wanted to conspire with the British so that again Jawan Bakht comes to the throne. Because she knew Jawan Bakht is stupid. So it's not that she believed in her son, she believed in herself. She's like, he will be the puppet king and I will rule. A mother's love often blinds her towards everything that goes around her. True. Zeenat Mahal's fierce protective instinct towards her child and her zeal to come out victorious made her fight all the more opposing. As a royal woman, it was not easy for her to get her way against the British, especially when Zafar was weak and inefficient. While I was writing this paragraph, honestly, I thought about it for 1 hour, okay? I read the sources and I knew now that Zeenat had conspired against the sepoys and she was ready to give all the information. Now, how do I justify such a move in a book? Should I say that she is a noble woman? Should I say that she is still very fierce? Does feminism mean that anything in the name of power should be allowed? But then I came to the conclusion, why do I want my character to be likable? Why does Zeenat Mahal need to be liked? Okay? It's okay if you find Zeenat Mahal bad, if you find Zeenat Mahal to betray the cause of Hindustan. Because so many like her before and so many like her after chose to conspire with the winning side. But only because she was a woman, the nationalists did not like her. आपने और किसी के बारे में तो ऐसा नहीं लिखा. आपने, yeah, you wrote they conspired, but you did not ridicule her to a level that you said that look, she was a witch, चुड़ैल थी. Okay? So when you say that a Begum is, and Jadunath Sarkar has a lot of words to say about such women. So when you write such things about a woman and you compare it to the other noblemen, so what are we trying to say here? You know? Zeenat Mahal was clever, intelligent women who knew that the chances of native sepoys winning the war against the British was bleak. From the onset, as the Mughal princes jumped into without a parachute into the power battle between the sepoys and the East India Company, Zeenat Mahal and her son chose to side with the British. By 1857, rift between Zeenat Mahal and Zafar became public. From her Lal Kuan Haveli, she held meetings aimed at furthering Jawan Bakht's claim to the throne. Zeenat Mahal, along with her son and council, shifted permanently to her Haveli at Lal Kuan, where they wrote a series of letters to the officers of East India Company, assuring them that they supported the British cause. And I have chosen this chapter as a reason for it. 5 days after the war broke out, the sepoys learned about the pro-British faction of Zeenat Mahal and her council. It became evident that Hakim Ehsanullah, Zeenat Mahal and Elahi Baksh were conspiring with the British. During the revolt, rumors had already started that Begum had secretly negotiated with the British. The deal was that she would help them as long as they agreed to recognize her son's claim to the throne. This angered the rebel soldiers who claimed to have proof of these talks. They tried to storm her Haveli, but the strong wooden gates, which still survive today, held them back. Journalists from that time, such as Munshi Muhammad Bakar and others, accused Zeenat Mahal of being pro-British. The sepoys were so angry with her that they threatened to depose her and replace her with Taj Mahal Begum. Unlike the traditionalists in court who underestimated the British, Zeenat knew the Mughal Empire days were numbered. She tried to secure alliance, protect her son's future, and even negotiate with the British, all the while royal members remained frozen with nostalgia and pride. She was a deeply logical and practical person. Zeenat Mahal actively negotiated with British intelligence through British cavalry leader William Hodson spy Maulvi Rajab Ali. So there are many natives who are conspiring. She hoped to secure protection for herself, Mirza Quli Khan, her father, and Mirza Jawan Bakt, but not the king's other sons. Even when Hodson explained that the Mughal dynasty would not be restored, she still negotiated hard to protect her son and father, not necessarily the White family. In fact, according to Matilda Saunders, Zeenat Mahal was thrilled that the elder princes were killed, seeing it as an opportunity for her son to inherit the throne. This epitomizes the desperation and broken alliances at the final collapse of the Mughal Empire. So you see that the Mughal Empire was so fractured from inside that even if we would have won, it would not have survived. जब अंदर से कीड़ा लग जाता है, when it starts decaying from inside, then it is numbered. Then it is very few days are left. So Zeenat Mahal had already knew this is not going to work out. So now I need to have a partnership with the British and then try to rule. But the British made it very clear to Zeenat Mahal, we don't want any communication from you, because they thought her as useless pawn. And in fact, when the Red Fort was captured, they made very sure that Zeenat Mahal was captured. She said, I helped you, I conspired with you. They said, no, you also need to go to Rangoon. So the entire family went to Rangoon. Zeenat Mahal stayed with Bahadur Shah Zafar. All the sons were murdered at the Lal Darwaza, which people confuse as the Delhi Gate. It is opposite Maulana Azad Medical College, near Kotla Feroz Shah, the Khuni Darwaza. And Bahadur Shah Zafar had the remains of Prophet Muhammad, especially a hair from his beard. Those relics were given to Nizamuddin Dargah, and then he proceeded to Humayun's tomb. But Bahadur Shah Zafar's physician gave the whereabouts to the British, and that is where Major Hodson came to Humayun's tomb, and in Humayun's tomb they captured Bahadur Shah Zafar. The trial went for 1 year in Diwan-e-Khas, where centuries ago the Mughal family had decided the fate of all the rulers. And Bahadur Shah Zafar was considered to be conspiring, and after 1 year of trial he was exiled there. If you go to Rangoon or Burma, जिसे अब हम कहते हैं, you can still find their dargah. He died midnight, and there was only one candlelight. And under the candlelight, the greatest Mughal empire was buried. Sooner, much later, Zeenat Mahal also, after 20 years, she also died. She is also buried over there. And it was many decades later that the natives decided to create a shrine over there, because the British did not want any noise to happen, because they feared another rebellion would happen if people get to know that the emperor of Hindustan has died. In fact, if you look at the paintings and photos from that time, the label says King of Delhi. It does not say King of Hindustan. So they wanted to underplay how much power did Mughals actually have. Okay. So I hope you really like the chapter.